Today, more announcements were made about the easing of the coronavirus lockdown. Now, if you're one of those people who during this period has been furloughed from your work or even lost your job, or before it all kicked in you were looking for work and it's put a hold on that, as the end of lockdown seems to be getting closer, it raises an important question for a lot of people, which is, what now? You hear lots of people at the moment talking about the new normal, and what that means is, what's life going to be like after lockdown in comparison to what was it like before lockdown? But it's much more realistic to say what's happening now. That change process isn't going to happen. It's already started, and you need to get your head around that. The analogy I like is to imagine you are stood on a huge piece of ice that's floating on the water. You might say to yourself, I'm okay, I'm on the ice, I'm not in the water. But if you look, the edges of that ice are crumbling and melting, and the piece you're stood on is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You have time to do something, but if you just stand there and keep telling yourself, I'm okay, I'm on the ice, you're just disaster waiting to happen. You have to do something. Most people, when presented with change, struggle because they don't accept that change is happening in the first place. In evolutionary terms, they talk about adapt or die, which is very dramatic and scary, I know, but what they mean is species that didn't adapt to change had a tendency to just die out. They couldn't cope. It was the species that could change and adapt and deal with the new situation that did well. They got stronger. And we need to take that message on board. That change process is already starting. And if you don't change with it, you could get left behind. So what do? So the first thing you need to do is assess your situation and assess yourself. That doesn't mean you have to go on a downer about how awful your life is. You need to be positive. You need to look at what you can do rather than what you can't do. Look at what you could do rather than what you couldn't do. Okay, let's be positive. But you also need to be brutally honest. If you're looking for work and you've been struggling for a while, then there's a big possibility that something's missing. Okay, it could be skills, could be training, could be experience, could be resources. It could just be that you need a bit more support. But whatever it is, you've got to be really honest with yourself and say, do I need one of these things to improve my chances of getting a job? Most people say yes to one or more of those things. And if you do say yes to one or more of those things, then you need help. We all need help from time to time. The good news is there is help and support out there, especially if you live in Stockport, because then you've got access to Stockport Homes' excellent employment team. I will put their contact details at the end of this video. But there's no shame in getting help, and if you're struggling, then it's the sensible thing to do. A lot of the people you'll be competing for jobs won't ask for that help. So why not get the advantage? Why not get as much of a boost as you can? Get help now. The next thing you need to do is look for the opportunities. Now, you may sit there listening to that and say, well, that's all right for you to say. You don't know what I've been through. I've been looking. I've been trying. But the reality is, in any crisis, there are always opportunities. But they're often really hard to see because we have a tendency to look at what we've done, what we've always relied on, and just try to keep doing that. We try and repeat that. And if things change and that thing you've always relied on doesn't work anymore, then you need to start looking for something new. And that means you've got to be a bit open-minded and you've got to be a bit creative. One of the things you can do is sit down with a piece of paper and just write down what your skills are, what your qualities are, what are you good at, and then have a think about, when you look at that list, what could I do with that set of skills and abilities that I've never considered before? What could I offer an employer? And if that doesn't really inspire you, maybe the opportunity is for change in itself. Maybe it's time to do a complete career change. Maybe it's time to retrain. Maybe it's time to go back to college. Maybe it's time to start that business you've always been thinking about. But you've got to be creative, and you've got to be positive, and you've got to be open-minded and think about what you could do rather than what you always have done. We need to adapt. Action. So once you've assessed your situation and you've been really honest with yourself about where you're at and what you want to do and what you need, and you've looked at the opportunities that are available to you and maybe come up with a bit of a plan about what you want to do, then you need to act. You need to do something. Do not wait. Start now. Okay? The biggest mistake people make is they sit on it. They ponder on it. They think, I just need to think about it. And as that hour becomes a day, becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes never. They never do it. It's called procrastination. The hardest part of changing is starting the process. So get that bit over and done with as soon as possible. Change can happen very dramatically and very suddenly, but more often than not with ourselves, it's because of consistent, tiny, small steps done regularly that form new routines that change who we are. So use that. Start a little positive routines now that are going to push you in the direction you want to go. If you want to learn new things, if you want to start sending out and applying for more jobs, if you want to start making telephone calls or knocking on doors, or you just want to ask for help, start that process today. Start it straight after this video. Don't wait. Why wait? The longer you wait, the more you risk it's never going to happen. The more you risk that ice melting away completely and you falling into the water. Okay? So act now. So the last thing to say is that this is going to be hard. It's going to be tough, let's be realistic, but it's important you have a bit of faith in yourself, a bit of self-belief, and you can do it. You might need a bit of help, which is fine, but you can do this. Think about, if you're struggling now, try not to think so much about what life's like for you now, but think about what it could be like in a year's time. Wouldn't it be great in a year's time to look back on today and think, well, you know what, it was horrible at the time, but it pushed me to make the changes I needed to get myself where I am now in a much better place. And I hope that's the reality for all of you. This is difficult, I do recognise that, especially if you've been trying for a long time. But if you open your mind to what you can do and open your mind to change and how you need to change to take advantage of this situation and survive it, then you can do it. Believe me, you can. So take hold of that opportunity, ask for the help, and do something right now. Don't wait. Okay, that's the danger, is just to leave it and hope for the best while your little piece of ice melts away. Okay, act now. And then other than that, I just wish you the best of luck, genuinely, and please stay safe, and until next time, goodbye.